But regret is a much more interesting consideration. For all sorts of reasons we don't have time to get into today, medical regret is actually a fascinating field and one that's very difficult to do studies on.
Your video's an hour and 30 minutes. You don't have any time to visit the regret.
Not on this particular form of regret.
I mean, the fact that they had 138 people 10 years ago and now it's like 2,300 makes me think maybe the regret pile is going to be a lot larger than the actual transgender pile. It just seems that way to me.
Because what are the units of regret? Wistfulness per kilogram, perhaps? The data we have...
How do you define regret?
Well, first of all, that's a weird... I mean, I know it's a joke, but there literally are like questionnaires and models in psychology that measure regret. And life satisfaction after surgeries and things like that's not like an unusual thing.
She brings it up with the knee replacement.
Yes.
I mean, there's literally women suing Tavistock for chopping off her breasts. And it's like, well, do you really regret it? What's the metric?
Yep.
Well, so much of the regret could be how it was, the anticipation of what the outcome would be. So if the doctor sold them on some sort of outcome that would be, great, and it didn't turn out that way, obviously they're going to feel regret.
Sure. Suggests that transition regret is actually very rare. I found a meta-analysis of 27 studies that looked at just under 8,000 trans patients in several countries who'd had some form of surgery, and which found a regret rate of about 1%.
Did suicide count towards that regret rate?
I don't know.
I doubt it did.
They did not. No, actually, I looked through a bunch of these studies, and there's a huge problem with this, is that half of the studies are like old studies before any children were given hormone blockers. So these are all and all the studies none of them were kids. They were all adults who transitioned.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
That's a huge thing.
Right. So these are adults. None of these people, or most people in these studies, did not receive hormone blockers. They did not socially transition, beforehand. And then on top of that, it's like, for the studies that were more recent, where maybe they were given hormone blockers, the follow-ups are very short because this is like a recent thing. They've only been like a month or a year follow-up at maximum, not enough to measure this. And then on top of that, this is a bullshit argument because this would be, even if these studies were applicable to today's criteria in today's world, that's under a doctor-controlled system. You're advocating to remove all the controls.
And why is it that the regret of the minority, you will assume, is so irrelevant? Like, sorry, it would not have been even one woman who has had her breast cut off or man who has had his balls cut off who regrets it is too many.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. Well, and also part of even if the regret rates are low, often the problem is, as I said, suicide attempt rates don't change that significantly. And even though suicide ideations decrease, they're still above the average, the norm. So there's still something there that's happening that's not necessarily being addressed.
According to that study, it's 79 people. That's 1%, right? So it's 79 people who experience regret. But if obviously all the safeguards are taken away, that regret is going to skyrocket.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
The other way of phrasing that would be to say that gender-confirming surgery appears to have a satisfaction rate of about 99%, according to that meta-analysis, which is remarkably high, especially when we compare
experimental surgery
to
it
other
is.
surgeries. And that's the kicker. Because do you know what kind of surgery actually has quite high regret rates? Knee replacements. But there's no need for a psych evaluation.
What's the thing she's got up there? I could totally see the knee replacement being higher because they totally sell them on it. They tell them you're
amazing.
Going to be like a brand new knee. You're going to feel like you're 15 years old again. And they're like, wow, it doesn't work out. Yeah.
It's a very, long, painful, I think, recovery process.
Right.
But what were the odds? Right?
Yeah.
What were the odds that actually all of these, necessary surgeries, these are low approval rating afterwards. But this one that is just hip and fashionable and has progressive activists doing all the studies for it, 99%. 99%. What were the odds?
How many?
Cutting off your balls or your tits? Nearly 100% satisfaction. Right. What are the odds?
How many questionnaires got dropped behind the cabinet, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Well, how much self-selection was going on in these surveys? You know,
a lot, because when I was going through the individual studies, most of them would have very low participation rates. They would send out a bunch of questionnaires and they'd get back like 30%. And even even one of them that I was looking at, or actually a bunch of them I was looking at, they would even say at the end in the conclusion section, they'd say, you know, a limitation, the study's main limitation was the sample representativeness with a response rate of 37%, similar to the attribution rates of most follow-up studies. Our study probably suffered from a selection bias. So
must not make a suicide joke. Mustn't just make a suicide joke.
Well, that could be another issue too. If someone does commit suicide, they're not going to obviously.
They didn't even send back their survey,
you know? Right? So,
yeah,
like, fuck's sake, it's so obvious this is bullshit.
But the argument she's about to make is so goofy.
Do you know what kind of surgery actually has quite high regret rates? Knee replacements. But there's no need for a psych evaluation before you get one of them.
Because it's not a psychological problem. You go, the doctor, they take an x-ray and they say, oh, you don't have any fucking cartilage in your knee. Like, what? You don't have to be like, well, you know, did someone touch you when you were 10? Did they touch you on the knee? Is that why you want to get knee surgery? Like, what the fuck?
Are you actually fucking mental? You want knee surgery? Don't you know the regret rate for that?
Yeah. Listen, this is how we know that Abigail's not grifting. She's too stupid to grift.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
This argument's crazy.
Honestly, I think that she is smart enough to know that she's lying and selling horse shit to people. I think she's smart enough.
This is like you can make intelligent arguments. This is not it. Okay.
Yeah, but I think she knows that the audience she has cultivated is not smart enough to understand exactly what you just said, and so it doesn't matter. She's getting paid either way. She's getting validated either way. I think she knows.
Right. I don't know. This is just so
Call
dumb.
me cynical, but
you don't have to get a psych evaluation for your knee replacement. Oh my God.
Therefore, chop off your balls.
When you get your tonsils out, the doctor just looks at your tonsils. Why don't you have to go see a psychiatrist first? Jesus.
Such a ridiculous argument.
Another example, nose jobs. No psych evaluations there. Surgeon just says, okay, tell me what you want. Cyrano de Bergerac or Lord Voldemort?
Well, first of all, unless you have like an injury, or medical concern, most nose jobs are entirely cosmetic anyway. So you don't really need a doctor to do
Go ask for the Voldemort and see what the doctor says. That's what I'm.
Also, aren't they done privately?
I mean, where?
Sure.
If it's cosmetic, if it's purely cosmetic and not reconstructive, then I would assume it would be. Yeah.
If your nose gets bitten off by a dog, they probably pay for it in the NHS. Right.
But if you're like, I just want to get a couple inches shaved off, they probably
no. The NHS does not provide cosmetic nose surgery.
Even
but they classify if you're injured, it's not called cosmetic surgery. Yeah. If you're injured, it's called like reconstructive or something. So
£4,000 to £7,000 in the UK. And it's cosmetic, unless it's obviously for an injury or something, but that's different.
Yeah.
So you would have to pay for that yourself.
Sure.
So no, I'm not surprised the NHS isn't sending you for a psychiatric evaluation for something they don't offer. Why would they?
You wait. If you go to like the salon, you want to get your hair dyed blue. Do you have to get an NHS evaluation beforehand?
Well, the NHS doesn't provide the service, so why would I have to tell them at all?
I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. If I can get my hair dyed blue, why can't I get my testicles removed?
Well, this is the thing. I think this has got to be a grift. It can't just be that Abigail is so phenomenally captured by her audience that it just doesn't matter. None of this matters. Nothing matters.
You'll see. So at the end, when she gives her thoughts on gender dysphoria, they're so wacky that maybe you'll change your mind.
I don't think I'll be able to. I've got to go. Really, I should have.
That's okay. You can take off. Thanks for dropping.
I was enjoying the stream.
Yes,
but
it's always.
No, we'll carry on for 5 more minutes, and that way I won't just run off.
if you're not going to block cis people getting medical care on the grounds that they might regret it, it's pretty paternalistic to only do it for us.
Yes.
The argument from regret is supposed to justify having this two-track system.
No, it's
but
paternalistic.
actually,
That's
it
right.
assumes
Shut up. You're right.
the very thing it's supposed to be arguing for,
Yes.
namely that trans medicine and cis medicine should be separate. That trans regret and cis regret...
What's a cis medicine? What's a cis
So
medicine?
ridiculous. It's like mental.
Trans people have never got a fucking knee replacement. That's what.
It's like mental health versus physical health. I mean,
Yes.
that's the split.
This would be like saying, oh, I want to go to the doctor and be like, doctor, I feel sad. Can you give me like a bunch of uppers? And the doctor's like, well, let's explore this first. And you're like, no, fuck you, you bigot. Just give me the brain altering chemicals.
I said I was sad, for heaven's sakes.
Yes.
What do you need?
Give me the speed, okay? I'm feeling down. It's like, what is this argument?
They put
Should
that on
never-
people's charts. They got like drug seeker.
Yes, they do. I know.
Yeah.
They're like that's part of the thing. The doctor's supposed to look out for that.
The doctors know, when they show up. They're like, oh, this is a frequent flyer here.
Yeah, when the person comes in, they're like, oh,
like,
doctor, I need some more opioids. I'm just in so much pain.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, really? Where's the pain? Oh, it's everywhere.
yeah. Oh my
How
God.
dare you ask, you bigot? Just give me the opioids.
Yeah. Life is
But
painful.
be compared. Designing the system to avoid hypothetical regret also assumes that
Hypothetical
there is a
regret.
conflict of
Hypothetical
interest
regret.
between trans people and people who regret transitioning. But actually, we could be on the same side. There are a small number of people who do detransition. I found one study from Britain that looked at over 3,000 trans patients and found that 13 of them, about 0.4%, detransitioned. And interestingly,
In what
most
time
Oh.
period? In what time period?
This is very interesting. I spent a long time trying to find this study,
Mhm.
and I couldn't find the study.
Uh-oh.
Now, I don't know if you can see, if you can kind of zoom in at the top of there, you'll notice that this quote-unquote study has something very interesting about it. You notice it has a date and time?
What's it say?
How many studies do you see have a date and time on them?
I can't
Not
see it on
usually
mine.
a
What are the
time.
dates?
It says Thursday, April 11th at 16:30.
That's
It's because this isn't a study. This is like a presentation someone gave
Oh,
at a
Wow.
conference. And the reason you can't find it's not a study. All that exists is like this abstract, which, by the way, this is like the worst done quote unquote study of all time. All they did was they just took medical records from patients for a year, from 2016 to 2017. They fed them through an algorithm where they inserted keywords like detransition or regret, and then the computer just spouted out like the number of files they could find.
No
Right.
way. No
That's
way.
yes way. That's what this did. And it took everyone's medical records. So this could be like all the people that are just applying for a first appointment are included in this total.
Wow.
Like it's totally fucking insane. That's why it's not a study.
Yeah.
but also, okay, this is in 1 year, and the next year, and the next year. Come on, let's.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
detransitioned temporarily and retransitioned later. The study could only find 3 people who stopped
Study.
permanently. Although there might be more, because if you just stop taking your hormones and go into the clinic, then you're not going to turn up in the data. But regardless, even if it is only 3 people, they still matter.
There you go.
They still need
Yeah.
healthcare too. And having to go around the houses to try and get it the same way we do is presumably just as much of a pain in their ass. And this is the really maddening thing.
Wait. She's trying to ignore the argument, which is like, well, wait a minute. Like, yeah, if they want to detransition now, it's going to be like a hassle. But the whole point of all the barriers of entry is to turn away all the people that don't actually have don't actually have gender dysphoria. They don't actually need the transition. That's the entire point of all this. And those numbers you've never looked at. It's useless to look at regret rates. You have to look at the number of patients that have been seen by doctors and then decided to not go through with it. That would be the actual thing to look at if you were interested in the real numbers.